The auditorium of Westridge Academy buzzed with anticipation as Amara Johnson, an 18-year-old senior with a knack for coding, stepped onto the stage for the annual hackathon finals. Her project, a predictive algorithm for traffic safety, had wowed the preliminary judges, positioning her as a frontrunner. The room, filled with wealthy students, faculty, and local tech scouts, watched as Amara's fingers danced across her laptop, pulling up her sleek presentation. Her dark eyes sparkled with confidence, her braided hair neatly tucked behind her ears. This was her moment. MIT was within reach, and she could almost feel the pride radiating from her grandmother, Vivian Harris, watching from the front row. But as Amara clicked to start her demo, the massive screen behind her flickered. Gasps rippled through the crowd as a grainy video replaced her slides, showing a split screen. On one side, Amara's code. On the other, an identical snippet labeled MIT Project 2024. The implication was Clersh stolen her work. Amara froze, her heart pounding as the auditorium erupted in whispers. From the back, Ethan Caldwell, the smug 18-year-old son of Judge Franklin Caldwell, stood up, his voice cutting through the chaos. "I found the match this morning," he announced, holding up a printout. "It's undeniable. She cheated." The room spun. Amara stammered, "That's impossible. I wrote every line myself." But Principal Margaret Stevens, a stern woman with ties to the Caldwell family, was already striding toward her, flanked by security. "Miss Johnson, step away from the stage," she ordered, her voice carrying over the murmurs. As Amara was escorted out, Ethan's smirk burned into her memory, and the sting of betrayal hit harder than the accusation. She caught Vivian's worried gaze, the 68-year-old's arthritic hands clutching her purse, helpless to intervene. In Stevens' office, the accusation landed like a sledgehammer. "This code is a direct match," Stevens said, sliding the printout across her desk. "Ethan Caldwell's integrity is beyond question, given his family's contributions to Westridge." Amara's protest that the similarities were standard frameworks, that she could recreate her code from scratch, fell on deaf ears. "You're disqualified," Stevens declared coldly. "We'll discuss your future at this school later. Westridge has zero tolerance for dishonesty." The next week was a nightmare. Security shadowed Amara between classes, their radios crackling with coded messages. Teachers who once praised her algorithms now avoided her gaze. Classmates whispered, their phones buzzing with the viral video of her hackathon humiliation, captioned with cruel hashtags like Westridge cheater. Only her computer science teacher, Mr. Alvarez, seemed skeptical of the accusations, but even he was silenced by administrative pressure. Late one night, alone in the school library, Amara combed through the student handbook for appeal procedures. Frustrated, she accidentally accessed an unsecured administrative server, while testing network vulnerability, a skill she'd honed with her cousin, Darius Coleman, a 23-year-old hacker. What she found stunned her. Records showing minority scholarship funds, meant for students like her, were being funneled to legacy candidates like Ethan Caldwell. For 3 years, qualified students of color had been denied aid, while wealthy white families received merit scholarships funded by diversity grants. Her pulse raced as she downloaded the files, her laptop screen casting a faint glow in the dark library. She didn't hear the security door creak open until flashlights blinded her. "Hands up!" barked Officer Brandt, a burly man with cold eyes. His partner, Officer Delaney, yanked her arms behind her, cuffs biting into her wrists. "You're hurting me," Amara cried, but Delaney hissed, "Quiet, girl." Breaking and entering, hacking school record series done. As they dragged her out, Amara saw Principal Stevens in the doorway, arms crossed, and behind her, Ethan Caldwell, his smirk now a full grin. "Check her bag," Stevens ordered. Brandt dumped her backpack, pulling out a flash drive Amara had never seen. "Hacking tools," he declared, though she knew it was planted. In the police cruiser, tears blurred her view of the school she'd once loved. This wasn't about a hackathon anymore. She'd stumbled onto something far bigger, and powerful people were determined to crush her. At the Westridge County Police Station, the holding cell reeked of bleach. Amara's wrists throbbed from the cuffs, but her requests for medical attention were met with laughter from the desk sergeant. "You'll heal in jail," he sneered. 2 hours later, Detective John Reynolds, a veteran with a permanent scowl, dropped a file on the metal table. Amara Johnson, 18, charged as an adult for computer crimes, theft of confidential data, and attempted distribution of stolen records. Up to 15 years. He leaned in, his breath sour. Sign this confession, or you're spending the weekend in county lockup. I was framed, Amara said, her voice steady despite her fear. That flash drive isn't mine. Reynolds laughed. Always the same excuses with your kind. The phrase hit like a slap, but before she could respond, the door burst open. Michelle Nguyen, a 42-year-old civil rights attorney and friend of Vivian's, stormed in. Where's my client? She demanded. Seeing Amara's bruised wrists, her composure cracked. Have you received medical attention? They refused, Amara whispered. Michelle turned to the booking officer, her voice like steel. Show me the arrest record. Now. The officer hesitated, then pulled up the file. Says she's 21, he muttered. That's a lie, Amara exclaimed. My ID shows I'm 18. Michelle produced a digital copy of Amara's birth certificate. You violated juvenile protocols. Where's the warrant? Detective Reynolds, now in the doorway, shrugged. System glitch. Evidence is still being processed. Michelle's eyes narrowed. How convenient. I'm taking my client home. You've got nothing but procedural errors. As they left, Amara overheard two officers whispering. Judge Caldwell won't like this, one said. Don't worry, the other replied. He's got a plan to teach her a lesson. In Michelle's car, Amara's voice trembled. Ms. Nguyen, they mentioned Judge Caldwell and something called the Westridge Preservation Society. Michelle's face darkened. That's no ordinary group. Get in. We need to talk somewhere safe. Amara Johnson's bedroom in her grandmother Vivian Harris's apartment was a sanctuary of code and ambition, its walls plastered with MIT posters and sticky notes of algorithms. But tonight at 18, she sat hunched over her laptop, the glow illuminating her tense face. The hackathon humiliation, Ethan Caldwell's public accusation. The viral video had turned Westridge Academy into a battlefield. Classmates' sneers, teachers' cold shoulders, and security guards' constant presence made her feel like a prisoner in a place she'd once thrived. Yet the files she'd glimpsed on the school's server, exposing diverted minority scholarships, fueled her resolve. She wasn't just fighting for her name, she was uncovering a conspiracy. Vivian, 68, shuffled in, her arthritic hands clutching a mug of chamomile tea. Her eyes, sharp despite years of nursing night shifts, studied Amara. You're burning out, baby, she said, setting the mug down. These people play dirty. You sure you want to poke this bear? Amara's fingers paused on the keyboard. They're stealing futures, Grandma. Kids like me who worked for those scholarships got nothing while Ethan's family gets richer. I can't let that slide. Vivian sighed, sitting on the bed. I raised you to fight, but this feels bigger than us. Amara nodded, her jaw tight. She'd already shared her findings with her cousin Darius Coleman, a 23-year-old hacker who taught her to navigate the dark web. Darius's last message, sent via encrypted app, was blunt. Keep digging, but watch your back. Whoever's behind this has power. Using Darius's tools, Amara accessed the school's encrypted email server from a VPN-masked connection. What she found was staggering. Correspondence between Principal Margaret Stevens, Sheriff Daniel Holt, and Judge Franklin Caldwell, all tied to the Westridge Preservation Society. The group, publicly a historical preservation club, was a front for a racist agenda keeping Westridge's schools, neighborhoods, and courts predominantly white. They orchestrated scholarship fraud, spiked property taxes for minority homeowners, and expelled Black and Hispanic students on flimsy pretexts. A name kept popping up. Pinnacle Development, a real estate firm buying up undesirable properties at rock-bottom prices. Amara's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You're being watched. Get out now. Her heart thudded. She zipped her laptop into her backpack, kissed Vivian's cheek, and slipped out the back door, heading for Westridge Academy's 24-hour library. The campus was a ghost town at 2 a.m., the air thick with summer humidity. Inside the library, she logged into a secure terminal, cross-referencing society members with county records. A pattern emerged. Caldwell's rulings favored Pinnacle, Holt's patrols targeted minority neighborhoods, and Stevens's expulsions cleared space for wealthy white students. Another text. They're coming. Amara's pulse spiked. She yanked her USB drive, stuffed her bag, and sprinted for the emergency exit. The parking lot was dark, the only light from distant street lamps. Headlights flared as two figures emerged, Officers Brandt and Delaney, their silhouettes menacing. "Hands up!" Brandt roared, his flashlight blinding her. Amara raised her arms, but a screech tore through the night. A delivery truck careened across the lot, its headlights pinning them like prey. Brandt tackled Amara to the asphalt, her cheek scraping raw as the truck swerved, slamming into a dumpster with a deafening crash. Delaney hauled her up, cuffs biting her wrists. "Thought you could run?" he snarled, slamming her against the patrol car. Brandt's fist sank into her ribs, stealing her breath. "That's for the chase," he growled. Amara's vision swam, but she glimpsed a dorm window, a student. Phone raised, recording. By dawn, the clip would hit TikTok, captioned "Westridge Cops Beat Teen," but Sheriff Holt's press conference would call it "resisting arrest," blaming Amara's violent behavior. The Westridge County police station's holding cell reeked of bleach and despair. Amara's wrists throbbed, her ribs aching with every breath. She begged for a medic, but the desk sergeant laughed. "Troublemakers don't get Band-Aids." Hours dragged until Detective John Reynolds, 52, a grizzled cop with a permanent sneer, entered. He dropped a file on the metal table. Amara Johnson, 18, charged as an adult. Computer trespassing, data theft, breaking and entering. 15 years minimum. He slid a confession across. "Sign and we'll talk leniency." "I was framed," Amara said, her voice steady despite the pain. "That flash drive you found isn't mine." Reynolds leaned in, his breath sour with coffee. "Your kind never owns up." The words hit like a slap, but before she could respond, Michelle Nguyen, 42, burst in. The civil rights attorney's presence was a thunderstorm. "You're holding my client without parental notification," she snapped. Seeing Amara's bruises, her composure cracked. "Where's the medical report?" "They refused," Amara whispered. Michelle whirled on the booking officer. "Show me the arrest record." He hesitated, pulling up a file claiming Amara was 21. "That's a lie," Amara shouted. Michelle produced her birth certificate. "She's 18. You violated juvenile protocols. Where's the warrant?" Reynolds in the doorway shrugged. "System glitch. Evidence is being processed." Michelle's eyes were ice. "You've got nothing but errors. I'm taking her home." As they left, Amara caught officers whispering. "Holt's furious," one said. "Caldwell wants her taught a lesson." In Michelle's car, Amara's hands shook. "Ms. Nguyen, they mentioned the Westridge Preservation Society. It's not just the school, it's everything." Michelle's grip tightened on the wheel. "I've heard rumors about that group. They're a machine, Amara. We need a plan." At Vivian's apartment, Amara found her grandmother packing. "Housing office called," Vivian said, voice trembling. "They're reviewing my lease because of your criminal activity. We could lose this place." Amara's stomach dropped. The society wasn't just after her, they were dismantling her life. She hugged Vivian, feeling the weight of her grandmother's fear. Her phone lit up with Darius's message. "They're tracing your IP. Go dark. Meet me at the old warehouse." Amara slipped out, blending into the night. At the warehouse, Darius, his hoodie obscuring his face, handed her a burner phone. "They're watching every move," he said. "I found their server, but it's Fort Knox. We need hard evidence." Amara nodded, her resolve hardening. "Then we break in." The next night, Amara infiltrated the school's IT room, using Darius's backdoor access. She was downloading society emails when alarms blared. Someone had tripped a silent alert. Flashlights swept the hall. She hid under a desk, heart pounding as Holt's voice barked orders outside. "Find her." Slipping through a vent, she escaped, but the close call shook her. The society was always one step ahead. Back at the safe house, Darius showed her a leaked memo. The society planned to frame her for a countywide cyber attack. "They're not just covering up," he said. "They're setting you up to take the fall." Amara's fists clenched. "Then we hit them first." The Westridge County Courthouse stood like a marble monolith, its columns casting long shadows as Amara Johnson, 18, climbed the steps. Her ribs still ached from the police beating, her wrists scarred from cuffs. Michelle Nguyen, 42, walked beside her, her briefcase a shield against the hostile glares of Westridge's elite gathered outside. Judge Franklin Caldwell, 63, had rushed the hearing, claiming public safety concerns, after the TikTok video of Amara's arrest went viral. "Stay calm," Michelle whispered. "Let me handle the arguments." Amara nodded, her stomach a knot of dread. The chance of justice for Amara from student protesters outside were a faint comfort. The courtroom was a pressure cooker, packed with society loyalists, bankers, developers, school board members, all under Caldwell's thumb. The judge, his silver hair gleaming, shared his son Ethan's cold blue eyes. Sheriff Daniel Holt, 52, stood near Officers Brandt and Delaney, their smirks barely hidden. Case 47293, Westridge versus Amara Johnson, the bailiff intoned. Michelle stepped forward. "Your Honor, we request transfer to juvenile court. My client is 18. Caldwell dismissed the documents without a glance. Records show she's 21. Motion denied. Michelle opened her mouth, but the court reporter interrupted. "Equipment malfunction." Caldwell waved it off. "Proceed without recording." He fixed Amara with a stare. "Ms. Johnson, you're accused of cybercrimes against a prestigious institution. Plead." "Not guilty," Amara said, voice clear. "I was framed after exposing scholarship fraud and discrimination." Caldwell's lips twitched. "This court deals in facts, not fantasies." Michelle interjected. "The prosecution has no evidence. We move for dismissal." Caldwell snapped. "Overruled. Sensitive systems require security protocols." For 20 minutes, Michelle's objections were crushed. Caldwell dominated, arguing the state's case himself, while the prosecutor, a nervous young man, nodded along. Outside, the protesters' chants grew louder, signs reading "Stop Racist Cops" visible through the windows. Caldwell's gavel slammed. "Silence that rabble," he roared, but the noise swelled. "Your Honor," Michelle pressed, "this violates constitutional rights." Caldwell's face flushed. "Ms. Nguyen, your theatrics tire me. Ms. Johnson, your record shows defiance. Principal Stevens reports disruptive incidents." Amara shook her head. "Lies." Caldwell leaned forward. "Certain students enter Westridge and cause trouble, ungrateful for the opportunity." "Certain students?" Amara shot back. "You mean black students?" The room froze. Caldwell hissed. "Your kind makes everything about race. This is about order." Amara stood taller. "Your bias disqualifies you." His gavel cracked the bench. "Officers, teach her respect." Brandt and Delaney forced Amara to her knees, pain flaring in her ribs. "Outrageous!" Michelle shouted. Caldwell sneered. "One more Nguyen and you're in contempt." Amara, head bowed but unbroken, pressed her bracelet's hidden recorder, a gift from Darius Coleman, 23. Across town, Darius, hunched over his rig, streamed the audio to Twitch, tagging activists, news outlets, and Justice for Amara. A creak at the doors. Lila Torres, a young reporter, slipped in, let through by a disgruntled court clerk fed up with Caldwell's corruption. Her camera rolled as a power glitch. Darius's hack lit the courtroom screen. Gala footage played. Caldwell vowing to preserve Westridge's character, Holt boasting about framing suspects. Gasps echoed as Twitch viewers hit 10,000, comments flooding. "This is insane," Caldwell screamed. "Shut it off." But the clerk stood frozen, watching Holt's image confess to planting evidence. Protesters outside roared, their chants shaking the walls. Amara rose, meeting Caldwell's panicked gaze. "Recess," he bellowed, fleeing to his chambers. The truth was out, trending nationwide. Weeks later, Amara infiltrated the society's gala at Lakeview Country Club, disguised as a caterer. Her mission: plant Darius's surveillance devices to capture the society's secret meeting. She glided through the ballroom, slipping microphones into vases, ignoring Caldwell's chatter with Pinnacle executives. In the private kitchen, she hid devices, but Caldwell entered, seeking the coordinator. Their eyes locked. "You!" he growled, grabbing her arm. "Security!" Amara slammed her tray into his chest, plates shattering, food splattering his suit. She bolted, sparking chaos as guests screamed. Sprinting through service corridors, she ducked into a storage room, finding a safe with Pinnacle contracts, proof of illegal land deals. Snapping photos, she fled to the rain-soaked golf course, a bullet grazing her shoulder. Pain seared, but she pressed on, mud-caking her shoes. A Waiter Digital Justice Collective member Javier Alvarez sped by in a van, yelling, "Get in!" They raced to the gate, but police blocked it. Amara tossed her phone with the photos to Emma Delgado, waiting beyond the fence, before sirens closed in. Bleeding, she was cuffed, Holt's voice in her ear. "You're finished." But Emma had the evidence. The society's empire was cracking. The hospital room was a sterile cage, its fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows on Amara Johnson's tear-streaked face. At 18, she should have been celebrating her high school graduation, not clutching her grandmother Vivian Harris's frail hand as monitors wailed in alarm. Vivian, 68, had been a rock, her arthritic fingers once stitched wounds as a nurse, her voice a lullaby through Amara's darkest nights. Now, after a stress-induced stroke triggered by a police raid on their apartment, Vivian's vitals were crashing. The Westridge Preservation Society, the shadowy cabal Amara had exposed, had orchestrated the raid to silence her. But this felt like something worse. Amara's shoulder, bandaged from the bullet graze at the gala, throbbed as she leaned closer to Vivian. "Please, Grandma, hold on," she whispered, her voice breaking. Across the room, Michelle Nguyen, the 42-year-old civil rights attorney, spoke in hushed tones with the attending physician. "We found anomalies in her medication drip," the doctor said, his face grim. "The concentration was 10 times the prescribed amount. We're counteracting it, but her age and condition," he trailed off, and Michelle's hand tightened on her phone, already dialing contacts for an investigation. Amara's mind raced, replaying memories. Vivian teaching her to make cornbread, her laughter filling their tiny kitchen. Vivian's stories of marching for civil rights, her eyes fierce with pride. "You're stronger than they know," she'd said after the hackathon scandal. Now that strength was slipping away. Amara scanned the room, her coder's instinct for patterns kicking in. A male orderly lingered near the fore stand, his movements too deliberate. "Who are you?" she demanded, stepping between him and Vivian. The man froze, his hand halfway to his pocket. "Just checking the drip," he muttered, but his eyes darted to the door. Amara's heart pounded. Seen that look before, in the cops who'd beaten her, in Judge Franklin Caldwell's cold stare. "Step back," she said louder, drawing the nurse's attention. The orderly bolted, knocking over a tray as he fled. The nurse hit the alarm and security swarmed, but the man vanished into the hospital's maze of corridors. Michelle's face was thunder. That was no orderly. They're targeting her. Hours bled into a haze of hope and despair. Amara sat vigil, whispering apologies as Vivian's breathing grew shallow. At dawn, Vivian's eyes fluttered open, her gaze locking onto Amara's with startling clarity. "Not your fault," she rasped, her voice a thread. "Don't let them win." Amara choked back a sob, squeezing her hand. "I won't, Grandma. I promise." At 7:42 a.m., the monitors flatlined. Vivian Harris was gone, the official cause listed as stroke complications. But Amara knew the truth: her grandmother had been murdered. The weight of grief crushed her, a physical ache deeper than the bullet wound. Michelle guided her out through a service exit, dodging news crews already circling like vultures. In the car, Michelle's voice was urgent. "Amara, listen. I checked the hospital's ownership. It's part of Regional Health Partners, a subsidiary of Westra Holdings owned by the Caldwell family." Amara's blood ran cold. "They control this hospital too?" Michelle nodded. "Their reach is everywhere. We're not safe here." The funeral was held 3 days later at a small chapel in a neighboring county, its stained glass windows casting rainbows on the pews. Amara had begged for privacy, but word had spread. Mourners, Vivian's former students, neighbors, Digital Justice Collective members filled the seats, their faces etched with sorrow. Amara, dressed in black, stood at the podium, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Vivian Harris was more than my grandmother. She was a fighter, a teacher, a light. She taught me that justice isn't given, it's taken." Mid-sentence, the chapel doors slammed open. 3 hooded men stormed in, their boots echoing on the hardwood. "Race traitors," one shouted, hurling a bottle at Vivian's coffin. Glass shattered and mourners screamed, ducking for cover. Amara froze, grief igniting into rage. She leapt from the podium, blocking their path to the coffin. "Get out," she roared, her voice a raw wound. The lead man, his face half hidden, sneered. "You're next, girl." Amara recognized his voice, a former Westridge student, expelled for bullying, now a society pawn. Before he could advance, Javier Alvarez, her old computer science teacher and a collective member, tackled him. Mourners rallied, Vivian's former students forming a human wall, their shouts drowning the intruders. "You don't belong here," a woman yelled, her voice fierce. The men, outnumbered, fled, but not before spray painting "Stay Down" on the chapel door. Amara sank to her knees beside the coffin, tears falling on the splintered wood. "I'm so sorry, Grandma," she whispered. Michelle pulled her up, her eyes scanning the crowd. "We need to move. They're not done." As they left, Amara's burner phone pinged an anonymous email with a video attachment. Her hand shook as she played it. Grainy hospital footage, time-stamped the night before Vivian's death, showing a nurse, not the orderly, injecting a syringe of clear liquid into Vivian's fore. The nurse glanced at the camera, her face clear. A known society operative, hired through Pinnacle Development's shell company. A note followed. "I'm sorry. I couldn't stop them." A hospital worker. Amara's vision blurred with tears, but her resolve hardened. Back at a safe house, a rundown motel room, she uploaded the video to Reddit, captioning it, "They killed my grandma. Westridge cover-up." Within hours, the post rocketed to r/all, amassing 50,000 upvotes. Comments flooded in. "This is murder. Vivian Harris deserves justice." Hashtags trended globally, and news outlets picked up the story, forcing the FBI to reopen Vivian's case. But the society struck back with chilling precision. Amara was driving a borrowed car to meet Darius Coleman, 23, now recovering from his coma, when a black SUV swerved in front of her on a deserted road. Two masked men leapt out, yanking her door open. "You're done, girl," one growled, zip ties in hand. Amara kicked, her foot connecting with his knee, but the second man grabbed her hair. Headlights flashed. Michelle's car screeched to a stop, her horn blaring. "Let her go," Michelle shouted, brandishing a tire iron. The men hesitated, then fled, their SUV peeling out. Amara collapsed against the car, gasping. Her phone buzzed. "Next time, no one saves you." At the safe house, Michelle revealed her own battle. "The State Bar Association is investigating me," she said, her voice tight. "They claim I facilitated illegal recordings. They're trying to disbar me." Amara's heart sank. "Because of me?" Michelle shook her head. "Because we're winning. They're scared." The society's retaliation escalated. They framed Amara as a cyber-terrorist, blaming her for a countywide hack that crippled traffic systems and hospital networks in minority neighborhoods. Her school ID photo flashed on billboards, labeled armed and dangerous. Darius, still weak, called from a secure line. "They hit my apartment again," he said. "The FBI's evidence package gone. Someone's cleaning house." Amara's fists clenched. "Then we go deeper." Using Darius's techniques, Amara operated from abandoned buildings, rotating proxy servers to avoid detection. She targeted the society's private server, referenced in their encrypted emails. After 3 failed attempts, each nearly costing her freedom, she breached its defenses. The files were a nightmare: videos of society meetings, Caldwell ordering health interventions like Vivian's murder, Sheriff Holt planning arrests to tank property values, spreadsheets tracking displaced families with chilling notes. Economic pressure successful. Family relocated. Most damning was a recent clip. Caldwell's voice cold and clear. The grandmother was a warning. "If Amara doesn't stop, we move to final measures." Holt added, "Assets in 3 counties are ready. This ends now." Amara's hands shook with rage and vindication. She compiled the evidence into encrypted drives, duplicating them across cloud servers. As she prepared to send them to Emma Delgado, the journalist who'd escaped with the gala recordings, police scanners crackled with her location. She called Michelle from a payphone, voice steady despite the sirens closing in. "If I don't make it, release everything," she said, rattling off access codes. "Make them pay." Minutes later, SWAT teams surrounded her, hidden out an abandoned warehouse. Amara slipped out a back exit, but a spotlight caught her. She sprinted, heart pounding as bullets kicked up dirt. Emma, waiting in a nondescript sedan, pulled up just as Amara dove in. "Did you send it?" Amara gasped, blood seeping through her bandage. Emma nodded. "It's out. Every network, every agency. Reddit exploded with justice for Amara, the server files trending alongside Vivian's video. The final showdown came in Caldwell's courtroom, a closed hearing meant to bury Amara. She entered cuffed and bloodied, Brandt and Delaney forcing her to kneel. Caldwell smirked. "You'll learn respect." But Darius, now awake, had one last play. From his hospital bed, he hacked the courthouse systems, broadcasting the server files on every screen. Caldwell's voice filled the room. The grandmother was necessary. Holtz followed. "Shoot on sight." The audience staff, minor officials gasped, some weeping. Chaos erupted. Caldwell slammed his gavel, screaming, "Turn it off!" But the screens multiplied the truth. FBI agent Catherine Winters burst in, flanked by tactical agents. "Franklin Caldwell, Daniel Holt, you're under arrest for conspiracy, civil rights violations, and murder." As Caldwell was cuffed, Amara rose, locking eyes with him. "This is for Vivian," she said, her voice ablaze. The room erupted in applause, chants of justice for Amara echoing as the society's empire crumbled. The congressional hearing room in Washington, D.C., was a cavern of polished wood and muted whispers, its air thick with the weight of history. Amara Johnson, now 19, stood at the podium, her dark eyes steady despite the sea of lawmakers, reporters, and activists before her. 6 months had passed since the Westridge County Courthouse became a battleground, where her grandmother Vivian Harris's murder and the Westridge Preservation Society's crimes were exposed to the world. The scars on Amara's wrists, faint reminders of police cuffs, were hidden beneath her blazer, but the fire in her voice was unmistakable. At an age when most were choosing college majors, she was testifying to reshape a nation's justice system. "Westridge wasn't just my home, it was a machine," Amara began, her words clear and deliberate. "A machine that crushed anyone who didn't fit its mold. I was 18, accused of cheating at a school hackathon, because I dared to excel as a black girl in a place that didn't want me. When I uncovered their corruption, stolen scholarships, displaced families, orchestrated murders, they tried to destroy me. My grandmother, Vivian Harris, paid with her life." Her voice wavered, and she gripped the podium, steadying herself. "But her death lit a spark. It showed me that justice isn't a gift, it's a fight." The room was silent, save for the scratch of reporters' pens. A senator, her face lined with skepticism, leaned forward. "Ms. Johnson, you're asking us to overhaul local judicial systems based on one county's failures. How do we know Westridge isn't an outlier?" Amara met her gaze. "Because the evidence doesn't lie. The Preservation Society's server, which I risked everything to access, revealed similar schemes in 12 states. Families driven out, careers ruined, lives erased, all to preserve a racist status quo. If Westridge was a machine, it's part of a bigger factory." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Amara's testimony, streamed live on C-SPAN, trended on Twitter with Project Vivian, named for her grandmother. She glanced at the gallery where Michelle Nguyen, 42, sat with a proud nod. The civil rights attorney, once nearly disbarred for defending Amara, now served on a judicial review board. Beside her was Darius Coleman, 23, still gaunt from his coma but alive, his laptop open to monitor the online response. Their presence anchored Amara, a reminder of the collective fight that had brought her here. The Westridge case had become a national reckoning. Judge Franklin Caldwell, 63, Sheriff Daniel Holt, 52, Principal Margaret Stevens, and 27 others faced federal charges: civil rights violations, conspiracy, murder. The Society's server, a digital crypt of their sins, exposed not just Westridge's crimes, but a network of similar groups across the country. FBI raids uncovered shell companies, rigged contracts, and hit lists targeting whistleblowers. The Justice Department, spurred by Amara's evidence and public outcry, launched a task force to investigate judicial discrimination, naming it Project Vivian in honor of the woman whose death had cracked the system open. Back in Westridge, the county was unrecognizable. A new district attorney, Carla Thompson, the first black woman in the role, stood at a community meeting in the rebuilt town hall. "We're not just rebuilding trust," she declared, her voice carrying over the diverse crowd. "We're building justice." The school board, once a society stronghold, now included parents of color, their voices shaping policies to ensure equity. Families forced out by predatory taxes and evictions received compensation, their return marked by block parties where children played under banners reading "Welcome Home." Westridge Academy, once Amara's prison, named its new computer lab after Vivian Harris, its walls lined with her quotes, "Justice delayed is justice denied." Amara's own path had transformed. In the chaos after the courthouse, MIT had not only accepted her but offered a full scholarship, moved by her story. She deferred enrollment to focus on a project closer to her heart, the Vivian Harris Memorial Scholarship. Funded by civil settlements from Caldwell and his allies, it supported minority students in law, technology, and government fields where systemic barriers loomed large. At the scholarship's launch, held in Westridge's community center, Amara stood before a crowd of hopeful teens, their faces reflecting her own hunger for change. "This isn't just money," she told them, her voice thick with emotion. "It's a promise. My grandmother believed excellence was our answer to hate. She fought for me, and now we fight for you." The room erupted in applause, and a girl, no older than 14, approached her afterward, clutching a coding textbook. "I want to be like you," she said shyly. "How do I start?" Amara knelt, smiling through tears. "Write your first line of code. Then keep going no matter who tries to stop you." Michelle Nguyen's work continued too. On the Judicial Review Board, she pored over decades of Caldwell's rulings, overturning sentences that disproportionately targeted minority defendants. One case hit close. A young man jailed for a minor offense was freed after Michelle proved Holt's officers had planted evidence. As he hugged his mother outside the courthouse, he sought Amara out. "Your fight saved me," he said, his voice breaking. Amara shook her head. "It was all of us." Darius Coleman, fully recovered, channeled his brilliance into a new mission. His startup, Secure Truth, developed encryption tools for whistleblowers, ensuring no one else would face the surveillance Amara endured. At a tech conference, he demoed an app that anonymized tip-offs to federal agencies, dedicating it to Amara. "She showed me what courage looks like," he said, his grin lighting up the stage. Backstage, Amara hugged him, whispering, "We're not done yet." On a crisp autumn day before leaving for MIT, Amara drove to Westridge's cemetery, the air sharp with the scent of fallen leaves. Vivian's grave was a simple marker, engraved with her favorite quote, "Justice delayed is justice denied." Amara knelt, placing a bouquet of roses, Vivian's favorite, against the stone. "We did it, Grandma," she said softly, her voice catching. "They didn't win. Because of you, others won't lose like we did." She traced the engraving, memories flooding back. Vivian's laughter, her fierce hugs, her unwavering belief in Amara's strength. Her phone pinged, pulling her from the moment. An email from the Justice Department, marked urgent, Project Vivian update. Amara opened it, her breath catching. The initiative had expanded, with pilot programs in 10 states using algorithms to detect bias in sentencing, algorithms inspired by Amara's hackathon project. The email ended with an invitation. "We'd like your input on scaling the program. Your voice matters." Amara smiled, tears blurring the screen. Vivian's legacy wasn't just a name, it was a movement. At MIT, Amara threw herself into algorithmic justice, her dorm room a chaos of code and coffee mugs. Her first project, a machine learning tool to flag discriminatory judicial patterns, won a university grant. Late at night, as she debugged lines of Python, she felt Vivian's presence, a quiet strength urging her forward. Classmates, initially starstruck by her story, became collaborators, their late-night hackathons echoing the one that had nearly broken her. "You're unstoppable," one said, and Amara laughed, a sound she hadn't heard in herself since before the nightmare began. Westridge's transformation wasn't perfect. Some residents clung to old prejudices, whispering about outsiders ruining their town. But the new community center, built on land once owned by Pinnacle Development, hosted coding camps, legal clinics, and town halls where voices once silenced now led. Amara visited during breaks, speaking at schools, her story a beacon for kids who felt invisible. "You are enough," she told them, and their eyes shone with possibility. The national impact grew. Project Vivian's first report, released a year after the hearing, exposed 47 judges with patterns of biased rulings, prompting resignations and reforms. Amara, now a sophomore, was invited to the White House to discuss its findings. Standing in the Rose Garden, she thought of Vivian's small apartment, her grandmother's voice echoing. Don't let them win. They hadn't. And they wouldn't. Amara's journey from a teen forced to kneel in a racist courtroom to a catalyst for systemic change proved that courage could dismantle even the deepest injustices. The Westridge machine was broken, its parts repurposed for fairness. Vivian's spirit lived on in every scholarship, every freed prisoner, every line of code Amara wrote. As she walked away from the grave, the sun breaking through the clouds, Amara knew this was no end, but a beginning. Justice, delayed for so long, was finally rising, and she would carry it forward.